Mhm. Nice. Hello. Okay, I'm gonna mute
Miss Julie's class.
Miss who's?
Miss Julie.
Okay, I only have Miss Raina here, but I'll send you guys to room 2 to go wait. Okay, I can do that.
Wait.
One second.
Mom, she's here.
Okay. All right, Damon and Zoe, are you also going to Miss Julie's class?
Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah.
Okay. We have a Google in room 1. Okay, guys, I'm gonna get started because we're live. So I'm gonna mute you guys, okay? And when you get invitations to go to your breakout rooms with your teacher, go ahead and click accept, okay? Now let's take a look. We are going to go on a virtual field trip today to the White House. The White House, does anybody know what that is? So that is where the President of the United States of America lives, right? And why are we touring the White House? Well, yesterday was election day, and it was not the presidential election. But now that the topic has been brought up about our government, I thought it'd be really fun for us to go and take a look at where the President of the United States of America lives and all the others that came before him. Almost all, right? Not including the original. So we are going to take this 360 degrees virtual tour, and it's really cool. Let's take a look here. For those of you who are still here, okay. One moment. Okay, I see here. I'm going to send you guys to room 2. There we go. When you get your invitation, you go ahead. Okay, guys. And one more. All right. Okay, so here we go. Back to our virtual tour. You guys are good to go. Go ahead and click your invitations to breakout room 2, okay? And you'll find Miss Julie there, I believe. So welcome to the White House 360 virtual tour. For those of you who are staying with us, this immersive experience will bring you inside the halls of the White House and provide access to all the public rooms on the ground and state floors. It will also allow you to examine the rooms and objects even closer than you would in person. Right? It's pretty cool. So some of these will be images that we're looking at virtually, and I will be narrating them for you. And others will be guided tours through videos that we will get to experience as well. So let's go, guys. This is our 45-minute tour. We're a little behind, but I think we can make up for it. All right, so here we are. And when we first enter the White House, all right, let's see where they've brought us. This is a layout, right? We can see the East Landing. Here, I believe, right, I think this first place that we're entering is, let's see, the East Wing. We're in the East Wing, I believe. So it's taking us through. We get to look around, and you can see the floors, the brick flooring, the old colonial architecture. It's pretty cool. Okay. And here they have a theater. Ooh, did you guys know there's a movie theater in there? That is pretty cool. All right, hi Ethan, welcome. We are in the White House right now, virtually, of course, virtually. Okie dokie. Here we see, well, those look like the main doors, but maybe not. I imagine they would be bigger. You can see they have a lot of artwork all over the walls. And right now it's taking us through to see it virtually, but then we're going to slow down and we're going to go in and we're going to click on all these little dots you see, right? These orange, green, and purple dots. So that way we can get more descriptions of what we're looking at here. Here looks like a library. Lots of books on the wall, some more artwork and paintings, a cozy fireplace with wood in it. I wonder if they actually use that fireplace. More artwork, beautiful flowers, a big rug and hardwood floors. And just imagine how many presidents have lived in this house. How many United States presidents? They have a china cabinet with dishes and glasses and different types of ceramics like bowls, vases. A very nice stairway. I like it. All right. So there's still some that we haven't seen. We're going to pause. And let's start over on the floor, second floor. We need to go to the east wing. Okay, let's click play. Maybe they need to take us through the second floor first, and then we go back to the east wing. Aha, okay. So now we're on the second floor, upstairs. We can see, who is this? Do we know who this is? George Washington. So he probably looks familiar, right? Let's take a look here. Well, we're looking at these images. I see some friends here waiting. Let's get them where they belong. Okay. And we have another screen. I don't know if this is you, Ethan, or someone else. Very nice. Lovely chandelier. Look at that. Very fancy, full of crystals. I bet it sparkles very nicely, especially in the evenings, right, when it's dark. Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness, kiddos. Oh, okay. Enoch is here now. Are we all good now? Thumbs up. We're good. All right. Let me see if I can find your stuff.
So we have a room here. It's an interesting shape, right? We have lots of doors going off that we are going to explore. We're almost there to the explore. A few more. So here we have the state dining room. My dining room is not that big. What about you? They probably have important meetings there as well. And important dinners, right? With very important people like leaders from other parts of the world. This is the cross hall. We have JFK there. And entrance hall. Ta-da! Very nice. Okay, so now, after we get to see just visually a quick walkthrough, maybe a little bit on the slower side, I think. But I like that they allowed us to look at the detail on the marble flooring and the tiling, hardwood floors, even the brick flooring, right? We've already seen more than 3 different types of floors all throughout the White House. It's very fancy. I think that's a perfect word to use for it, right? It's very fancy. So now we're going to explore the space on our own. So we're going to go inside. And we're going to go to play. I think we might have to go back to the beginning. Maybe, possibly, East Wing. And go into the East lobby. Here we go. All right, so now we're going to go back into some of these rooms, not every single one, but we'll start with the beginning in the East Wing and the East lobby that we see. And we're going to click on some of these that have some more information to tell us. But there's a lot, so we won't get through all of it, but we're definitely going to check out the family theater as well. All right, we'll check out the library and a few more rooms, right? Let's see, did they have the Oval Office here? They didn't, but we'll check out the state dining room, the blue room. But first, let's start East lobby. Okay, we'll go left to right. So here we have Nancy Reagan. Woodrow Wilson. This is a statue of George Washington. And now, of course, as I mentioned earlier, we started here in the East Wing, and the East Wing was constructed in 1942, right, to house additional staff during World War II. Since 1977, this wing has served as the location of the office of the First Lady. Oh, all right, now we are in we're here at the East Colonnade. It connects the East Wing to the ground floor of the White House. Built in 1902, it is inspired by Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Henry Latrobe's original 1805 design. I really like these floors. Beautiful. Here we are, the Family Theater. Okay, the Family Theater was originally part of the East Colonnade until Theodore Roosevelt partitioned it as a cloakroom. Franklin D. Roosevelt converted the room into a theater to view wartime newsreels. Let's see. So I can zoom out here and we can turn around a little bit so we can see more. These seats look really comfy. I'd like to watch like a blockbuster film here. Not wartime newsreels, but this looks like a really fun place to have a movie night, huh? With popcorn and snacks. All right, this person here is Millard Fillmore. Chester A. Arthur. And now we are in the East Garden Room. The East Garden Room looks out onto the Jacqueline Kennedy Garden, a garden that was historically transformed by First Ladies Edith Roosevelt and Ellen Wilson. In 1965, Lady Bird Johnson oversaw the garden's redesign and named it after Mrs. Kennedy in honor of her efforts to revitalize the White House, right? To make it look fresh and beautiful again. And we know this person, right? Who is this? Abe Lincoln. Honest Abe, as they call him as a nickname, and Abraham Lincoln as his full name. Meet for Wild Men, right? So this is looks like a sculpture. It is by Charles M. Russell, made in 1956. Maybe we can zoom in and take a closer look. Meet for Wild Men. Why do you guys think they call it that? What do you see here when you look at this image? So they have, looks like hunting happening, right? Hunting with actual spears or bow and arrows, possibly. And I think it seems like Native Americans. Seems so. All right, here we are now in the ground floor corridor, which we do have a video here we're going to take a look at. All right, but first, let's read a bit about it. This corridor stretches the length of the Executive Mansion, connecting the East Wing to the West Wing. Before Theodore Roosevelt's 1902 renovation, the corridor was a dimly lit hallway leading to various service spaces. Edith Roosevelt suggested turning it into a gallery for the portraits of First Ladies, and it remains so today. That is wonderful, actually. I'm going to open this a little bit bigger. It's good. Now, no, it's still too tiny. There we go. Now it's bigger. Okay, guys, so this is the video tour of the same room that we were just looking at in the image that I read the description for, the ground floor corridor.
You are now entering the ground floor, part of the original structure of the White House. The ground floor was included in the original White House plans and was considered a basement to the state floor. Originally, this floor looked very different than it does today. The historic ground floor included laundry space, storage space, as well as the White House kitchens. The ground floor originally housed most of the enslaved and domestic servants for the White House, and they lived on this floor in extremely dark, damp, and even rodent-infested conditions, and the space was considered to have extreme temperature disparities. Throughout the 19th century, improvements were gradually made to the basement floor, and it included a plumbing system and a heating system and furnace. Starting at the 20th century with the 1902 Roosevelt administration reconstruction of the White House, the ground floor transformed into a series of coat rooms and powder rooms, and then later on was transformed into a series of display rooms, which now exist today. In addition to the White House Library, there's also the White House China Room, as well as the Vermeil Room, which houses a fantastic collection of vermeil or gilded silver, which was added to the White House during the Dwight D. Eisenhower administration. The ground floor is also home to many portraits of First Ladies, including Jacqueline Kennedy, Hillary Clinton, and Laura Bush.
All right, friends, that was very interesting to see. We're going to continue with our tour moving forward, and we're going to look at here is a Baltimore Sheraton breakfront bookshelf. So it's just describing this shelf here. Let me scroll down a bit so you can see the top to bottom. They have used it as a china cabinet where they're displaying silverware and dishes, right? This looks beautiful. Glassware, bowls and vases. Here we have a presentation saver, right? This sword, as we would call it, presentation saver. So perhaps when they were doing a presentation, they used it as a pointer. Pretty cool. Looks like a classic sword. We're going to look around this room a little bit more. We've got a lot to see. Let's see where we're going to go next. Over here, James Holden. We can't see it very well now, huh? Let's see if we can go back. There. Here. James Holden. Very teeny tiny though. We have Montchusia, a white plume, Kanza. That's the one at the bottom, I believe. Yes. And then the one at the top, Pitalisharo, a generous chief, Pawnee. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. I'm trying my best. Respectfully. Montchusia, white plume again, Kanza. Sharita Rish, wicked chief, Pawnee. So these are all they're Native Americans. And I think that's really awesome that they put them in the White House. They're an important part of American history as well. Marquise de Lafayette, or the Marquis, I'm sorry, in French, right? The Marquis de Lafayette, which is an important person. And here we have their library. And so we have another video here to check out more information about their library, which contains over 2,700 books, representing classic works in American history, literature, and philosophy. The room is sometimes used for interviews and televised addresses by the president. So maybe you might recognize this room. Let's take a closer look.
The library is located on the ground floor of the White House, and it's one of the first rooms you'll see on the public tour. Historically, the ground floor has been used primarily as a service space, and in its earlier iteration, the library was used as a laundry. It was also used for storage, for things like tubs, lumber, but only in 1935 did it become a designated space as a library. Franklin Roosevelt wanted to have a distinct, separate library for the White House. Ever since then, the library has grown. Today you can find over 2,700 volumes. They are intended to represent the very best of American history, culture, politics, philosophy that are available to the President and the First Lady or White House staff anytime they want. They rest on shelves that were actually repurposed and salvaged from White House wood. During the Truman renovation between 1948 to 1952, pieces of the old timbers were taken and reused and repurposed and turned into these bookshelves for the library. One of the most noteworthy items in the room is the Georgia O'Keeffe painting above the fireplace. It was acquired for the White House collection in 1997. This depicts a scene at Taos near Bear Lake, New Mexico, and it was the first major acquisition of a woman artist of the 20th century. In addition to the Georgia O'Keeffe painting, There are a series of Native American portraits done by Charles Byrd King. There are 5 Native American portraits of the delegation that came to the White House during the presidency of James Monroe. On one wall, you'll see 4 of these delegates, but as you exit the library, you'll see the 5th, the only female who was present for the delegates' visit. There's also a small likeness of the original White House architect James Hoban located in the library.
Very nice. So this gives us much more in-depth information about some of those images that we went through with brief captions or descriptions, right? Okay, guys. So now we're going to continue on with our tour, and now looking at, so this is what he mentioned as being the only female Native American who was present during that. Right, so Hain Hujihini, I think. Equal of Delight is what it translates as. Otto. Laura Bush. This might be a more familiar face to some of us, possibly, maybe. Might be a little too old for some of our younger students. But Laura Bush, all right. Right, she was a first lady not too long ago. Maybe wasn't that long ago, 20 years ago? Okay, so now we have Caraville Center table, the center table. There we go, that's better. And we're in the Vermeil room. So the Vermeil room showcases objects from a collection of more than 1,500 pieces of vermeil or gold-plated silver. This collection was given to the White House in 1957. Once a ladies' sitting room, the space is often decorated with portraits of first ladies. So that's how they purposed it. A wine ear, right, for pouring wine. The Monroe State Service. Huh. The farm landing, right here, a painting. And the China Room, right, which has served as a display space for historic White House tableware since 1917. The room houses china, glassware, silver, and other pieces representing nearly every administration. Wow, so these are the original silverwares, dining utensils, etc., tableware that past presidents have used. Now they're on display. Grace Goodhue Coolidge. Centerpiece, right? So another picture of the first lady. Centerpiece, Pierce State Service. Jackie Kennedy, right? Very famous first lady here. Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy. Lovely portrait. Patricia Nixon. So now we get to see more in depth all of those portraits of first ladies they mentioned. Another statue similar to the one we saw earlier about with the Native Americans hunting, except this one is called Coming Through the Rye. And instead of Native Americans, what do you guys see? Kind of looks like the opposite here, or at least the way it's portrayed in pop culture, right, and films. But these are what we call cowboys. That's what they look like. Right, so very interesting. They look like American cowboys from the Wild West. We have the Clinton Anniversary Service, right? So this must be the tableware from the Clinton Anniversary Service. We also have Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton, a previous first lady and presidential candidate, actually. Right, she did run, but she did not win. We have Hayes Dinner Service. So this is the silverware and tableware from Hayes Dinner Service. It's very pretty. We can see some have very intricate decorations. Like this oyster plate here, very fancy. We have some ducks. I do not have fine tableware like that. Okay, here we have a portrait of George Washington, our first president. Okay, and now we're going to go on a virtual video tour here of the East Room, which is the largest room in the White House. It's grand yet sparsely decorated. It is used primarily for common gatherings such as conferences, announcements, and bill signings. It has hosted celebratory events, including performances and even weddings, and on occasion somber ones such as funerals, unfortunately. Let's take a look at the East Room.
The first stop on the state floor is the East Room. It was designed to be the largest room in the White House because it was intended to be for public receptions and other ceremonial occasions, but for the first several decades, the room wasn't actually finished. When John Adams moved in, they used it to dry laundry. Presidents that followed after him essentially used it as a storage space until Andrew Jackson's presidency, when the room was completely finished and outfitted with furniture. From that time forward, the East Room has served as a place for public receptions, ceremonies, bill signings, and of the 8 presidents who've died in office, 7 laid in state in the East Room. It's also been a place of joyful occasions, in particular weddings. Nellie Grant, Alice Roosevelt Longworth, and Lyndon Johnson Robb all had their weddings in the East Room of the White House. Chandeliers that are in the East Room today were installed during the 1902 Theodore Roosevelt renovation. The current edition has about 6,000 individual pieces of glass, and these chandeliers weigh approximately 1,200 pounds each.
Wow.
Probably the most iconic White House artifact resides in the East Room. It's Gilbert Stuart's portrait of George Washington. This was commissioned in 1797 and purchased by the federal government and put into the White House in time for Washington's successor, John Adams, to move in 1800. But the most famous story surrounding the portrait is its saving. Dolly Madison was given credit for saving the portrait herself. But over time, what we've learned is that while Dolly Madison gave the order for the portrait to be saved, it was a group of people, free and enslaved servants and strangers on the street, who actually came into the White House and assisted taking the portrait down and transporting out of harm's way before the British burned the White House in 1814.
Wow. All right, so for those of you who are not aware, the original White House was burned down, unfortunately. So the White House that you guys see today, right, was rebuilt. But that's what they mentioned before in the library, how some of those shelves were made from wood that was repurposed after the original was burnt down. So it's part of the original White House, those bookshelves. Okay, so here we have a chandelier, which they mentioned has thousands of pieces and weigh, what did he say, 1,000 pounds? It's crazy. Martha Washington. A candelabra. Light standard. 3 children. Painting here. Edith Kermit Carroll Roosevelt. Benjamin Franklin. Let's see if we can see the other side of him, can we? I think not. It won't let me move in that way. So we get to see the back of him. That's funny. Ah, maybe now I can see him. Yeah, now I can. So there he is from before. All right, Benjamin Franklin here. It's the statue. And we actually have another virtual video tour to take to describe this room here, which is called the Green Room. And I think that's a perfect name because what color do you see? The carpet is green, the walls are green, the furniture is green. What do you guys think? Would you decorate your home like this? Maybe. The Green Room was named by President James Monroe in 1818 and has federal style furnishings. The elegant but relaxed parlor is used for small gatherings, interviews, and teas. So tea time. Let's take a look.
The Green Room of the White House is the least formal parlor on the state floor and the most American. President John Adams originally may have used the room as a bedroom for one of his secretaries, and then President Thomas Jefferson transformed it into a dining space. Over time, the use of the room transformed and is typically used for small meetings, gatherings, and even teas. President James Monroe is the one that added the green silk wall hangings and gave the room its name, the Green Room, and it is the first parlor on the state floor to be named after a color. The Green Room is also an art gallery, just as the Blue Room and the Red Room are, and it features many paintings by various American artists, international artists, and paintings of presidents and other notable historical figures. One of the room's most interesting paintings is Sand Dunes at Sunset, Atlantic City by the artist Henry Asawa Tanner.
Beautiful.
Tanner completed the painting in 1885, and it was added to the White House collection in 1995 by the Clinton White House with assistance from the White House Historical Association. The painting is the first example of a piece of art by an African-American artist in the White House collection. Other paintings in the room depict scenes from American history, like the painting Independence Hall by the artist Ferdinand Richart. The painting depicts a summer day outside of Independence Hall, the location where the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution were signed. The Green Room also features a number of paintings of important individuals in American history, including President John Quincy Adams, First Lady Louisa Adams, and a portrait above the mantel of First Lady Edith Roosevelt. Also in this room is the painting The Builders by African-American artist Jacob Lawrence.
Very interesting. And I love all the art everywhere. They did a very good job displaying all of it. So here are some of the paintings that they showed, right? The Independence Hall in Philadelphia. The sand dunes at sunset in Atlantic City. James Monroe. The gilded mantel clock depicting Hannibal. Here, centered for you. The Boulange Suite. And the Blue Room, right? So we were in the Green Room. And I think it's no surprise that this room is called the Blue Room. We have a blue carpet, blue furniture, and blue curtains, right? But we don't have blue walls, though, interestingly enough, because in the last room, right, the walls are also green. We can see through here, through this door. So this is the way we're traveling. The Blue Room is famous for its oval shape, central location, and views of the Washington Monument and Jefferson Memorial through the south portico windows. Let's see if we can see it. No, where we're placed, we can't, but I would assume it must be somewhere through here. Assuming, but not 100% sure. For many administrations, it has historically served as the space for receiving guests to the White House. Okay, because it's a beautiful room with a beautiful view. I can see that. All right, let's take a look now. We're going to make this bigger and we're going to take a more in-depth look at the Blue Room. Here we go.
The Blue Room is one of the most elegant rooms in the White House. Early on, it was often referred to as the Oval Saloon, the Elliptical Saloon, but the name Blue Room didn't really stick until the Martin Van Buren administration when the colors were changed. This room was designed to primarily buttress President Washington's idea of the presidential levee. This was a ceremony that involved the president greeting guests in a circular form. And to have this type of space would have been high fashion in Europe, and it certainly would have been reflective of having the highest knowledge as President of the United States. The Blue Room has some of the best views in the White House. Looking out those southward windows, one can see the South Fountain, the National Mall, the Washington Monument, even as far as the Jefferson Memorial on the south side of the city. In many ways, the Blue Room is the Monroe's room. Not only are there portraits of James and Elizabeth Monroe standing guard, but many of these French-made objects that are in the room were acquired during the Monroe administration between 1817 and 1824. The most significant historical artifacts in the room are these pieces of furniture. These belong to a suite of furniture that was ordered for the White House by James Monroe in 1817, created by a Parisian cabinet maker named Pierre-Antoine Boulanger. They were gilded and they were upholstered in red fabric. Originally, there were 53 pieces. Today, 10 pieces have been brought back to the White House collection. The most recently acquired one was a fire screen, which has been reinstalled and placed in the Blue Room. As you look around the south side of the room, you'll see a series of portraits. In addition to President James Monroe and his wife, Elizabeth Monroe, you'll also see likenesses of Presidents James Madison, Thomas Jefferson, and John Adams. If you look to the north above the doorway, you'll see another presidential portrait, William Howard Taft. What makes this portrait a little unusual to the room is that Taft had his portrait painted in this space. In fact, if you look behind him, you can see the color of the Blue Room as it existed during the Taft administration.
So it was blue. That was interesting. And if you guys noticed, we got to see that view, right? So that view of the Washington Monument, and the Jefferson Memorial right through those windows that we had mentioned that we just can't see it from this angle, but it is through these windows. So I'm sure that's a very, very inviting room, and it makes sense that they would use that room to receive guests. Okay, now let's take a look. It looks like we've gone, it looks like we're back in the green room. Looks to be so. And it's pointing here at the top. We can't see it very well, but it's a lighter relieving a steamboat aground. There, now we can see it better. So the purple at the top was the previous description. Now the orange circle at the bottom is pointing to this cabinet, right? It's a cylinder desk with bookcase. Ah, there's the desk. So it's all connected, and they use it as another china cabinet. William Howard Taft, there, we just saw him in our video for the Blue Room. And here we see the seal of the President of the United States. I'm sure this probably looks familiar to a lot of you guys. We do see this, right? So the seal of the President of the United States, the official seal. So let's go back, actually. Let's see if we can see him here. Oh, that's just our Blue Room. We came out. And we have our cross hall. So the cross hall connects the main rooms and parlors on the state floor. It is used as an elegant thoroughfare and more recently as a gallery for presidential portraits. Here we have White House building dates. So here on the bottom, you can see, so 1792 to 1902. It looks like there's some more numbers here, but I can't see them very clearly and I don't want to misread them. So we will continue. The Bellage French Empire Pierre table, very beautiful. I think this is very, very nice. Minerva clock, so the one sitting atop of it, the Minerva clock here. Steinway piano and bench. Wow, this is an amazing piano. Who here can play the piano? Do I have any piano players? I bet you would get excited if you got to sit and play at this piano. I certainly would, because I love to play piano. I don't know if I'm good enough for this piano, but I would definitely try my best. Wow, even the bench, that's amazing. So beautiful. The designs on the side. Let's see if we can zoom in and see it a little bit closer. I see someone playing a guitar and some women, it looks like they're dancing. I can't see all the images very clearly, but wow, beautiful. Now here we are at the entrance hall, which we do have a video, and we're going to take a look at this video. Here you can see stairways, hallways, right? So it looks like this is the entrance hall, and these doors may possibly be the main entrance. We'll see. So the entrance hall remains largely faithful to James Hoban's original design. The hall is also adorned with portraits of former presidents. There we go. Let's take a closer look at the entrance hall.
The entrance hall has served as the primary entrance for the White House since the time of Thomas Jefferson up until Theodore Roosevelt in 1902. Presidents have used the entrance hall for different purposes. In Jefferson's time, he used it to display different pieces and artifacts that were sent back from the Corps of Discovery by his secretary Meriwether Lewis and William Clark. In Jackson's time, he actually used the space to put out a mammoth cheese that was gifted to the White House in 1835.
Cheese.
There's a series of columns that separate the entrance hall from the cross hall. You'll see dates on the floor. These mark important renovations, reconstructions, and rebuildings in White House history. First is 1792. The cornerstone was laid for the first White House on October 13, 1792. The next one is 1817. This was after the rebuilding of the White House after the British burned the building during the War of 1812. The next date is 1902. This was a modern renovation that was carried out by Theodore Roosevelt with the assistance of McKim, Mead & White, a very famous architectural firm out of New York. And finally, 1952, the last major renovation in White House history carried out by Harry Truman, which took 3.5 years between 1948 and 1952. Truman ordered that a new presidential seal be installed above the doorway of the Blue Room. The gold eagle leg piano in the entrance hall was a gift of Steinway & Sons in 1938 to the Franklin Roosevelt White House. The 1938 Steinway is still used today for White House concerts and primarily by the United States Marine Band, which is the accompanying band for the President and First Lady of the United States. One of the most famous portraits in the Cross Hall is the Aaron Schickler portrait of John F. Kennedy. Schickler was chosen to be the artist for both President Kennedy and former First Lady Jacqueline Kennedy, and their portraits were completed in 1970. President Kennedy wasn't alive to be part of the process. You see that portrait of Kennedy deep in thought, contemplating. Now, the only time that Mrs. Kennedy ever returned to the White House was to see her and her husband's portraits. President Nixon and First Lady Patricia Nixon invited them to see the finished portraits in February 1971. They were unveiled to the public, and President Kennedy's portrait has stayed in the Cross Hall and the entrance hall ever since.
I liked that one. Of all the virtual tours we've taken so far, with the videos attached to them as well, I think that was my favorite. That was really interesting. And I loved that they showed more about the piano that I thought was so beautiful before, because I didn't even notice the eagle legs. Did you guys notice that? I was too busy focused on the pictures. I did not even notice. All right, so here we have a picture of Ronald Reagan, right, former president, and we're in the Cross Hall. The Cross Hall connects the main rooms and parlors on the state floor. It is used as an elegant thoroughfare and more recently as a gallery for presidential portraits. So we saw President Reagan there. It doesn't allow us to move from this spot, so we can't see any more. Oh, of course we can see JFK here. John F. Kennedy, nice picture. All right, now we're in a red room, it appears to be. Don't know if that's the name, but I'm guessing, because we had the blue room, we had the green room, and this room looks very red. We have Dolly Madison here on the wall, Angelica Singleton Van Buren, and it is called the Red Room. I'm very excited because I like the themes. So the Red Room is one of the 3 state parlors named after a color, with the designated red dating back to 1845 during the James K. Polk administration. The room is largely filled with 1830s American Empire or Grecian style furniture, most of which was made in upstate New York. So let's take a look at some of this furniture. It's very beautiful. I love these orchid flowers that they have here. Lots of artwork on the wall. So the walls are red here. The furniture is red, such as the chairs. The floor looks like we have a carpet with some red. Very lovely. All right, I'm going to go back and try to go forward again. There we go, because I knew that this room also had a virtual video tour. All right, guys, we are coming to the end of our tour. I think we can watch this one. We have a few more minutes, so let's see what we can find out in that short time. We almost finished our tour. Let's see how far we can get, because we have about 5 minutes left.
The Red Room is one of the most used rooms on the White House state floor. It is typically used for both private events and public events. Originally, the Red Room was used as a breakfast room by President John Adams, and then President Thomas Jefferson used it as a formal drawing room. Over time, the room has been used for many different purposes, and in 1845, President James K. Polk added the iconic red color. President Abraham Lincoln liked to use this room as a sitting room at night where he would read papers from around the nation covering the Civil War. And then it has also been used as an entertainment space. President Ulysses Grant loved to use this room for entertaining and would often bring the men to this room after dinner to enjoy cigars and sip brandy. And sometimes, on occasion, he would even reenact or recount some of his glory days on the battlefield. This room has also been used for more formal events. First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt used this room to host her women's-only press conferences, and on March 3, 1877, President Rutherford B. Hayes was secretly sworn in the Red Room following the contested election of 1876. Today, the room is decorated in an Empire or Grecian style, which was very popular in the 19th century and included elements of classical art. One of the most notable paintings in the Red Room is a large portrait of Angelica Van Buren. She was the daughter-in-law of President Martin Van Buren and often served as White House hostess. President Van Buren himself is represented by a portrait bust that also is featured in the Red Room. As you enter the Red Room, you will notice a beautiful portrait of First Lady Dolly Madison by Gilbert Stuart. Dolly Madison was well known for her entertaining and hostess duties as First Lady. She also hosted regular Wednesday night receptions at the White House. Other paintings in this room include natural landscape paintings, which depict a number of locations throughout the United States.
All right, guys, so that was some more information about the Red Room. We're going to keep going through. We have a few more before we finish up our virtual field trip today to the White House. So here is Martin Van Buren. Like we saw in the video, it's the sculpture of him at the top. That's his portrait. The cylinder desk with a bookcase. Here's the desk where you would write. Gilded brass and marble Garridon table. Here in the middle, in the center. And zoom in a little bit to see the pattern on the top. Everything was so detailed. It's so beautiful. We have the Rocky Mountain landscape. Here we have John Tyler. A Florida sunrise. And this piece of furniture here is the A.H. Davenport console table. Looks like it has some very nice marble on the top. We have a gilded English pear mirror with gold, very beautiful. And now we have the state dining room. Okay, so this brings us towards the end of our tour. We're almost finished, guys, but first we're going to take a look at the state dining room, which is often the setting for state or official dinners. And it is the second largest room in the White House. The room was expanded in 1902 during Theodore Roosevelt's presidency and rebuilt during the Harry S. Truman renovation in 1948 to 1952. So remember, that's the one we also recently heard about when it talked about those important dates on the floor about renovation. And his took about 3.5 years. Let's take a closer look.
The state dining room is the second largest room in the White House after the East Room. This room has most often been used as a dining room, but originally under President John Adams, it was used as a reception room, and then President Thomas Jefferson used it as his office and cabinet room. The room was expanded during the 1902 Roosevelt administration renovations of the White House, and during this time, beautiful oak paneling was installed in the dining room. This paneling was originally just dark wood. However, after the 1948 to 1952 Truman renovation of the White House, this was painted to cover any scars from construction. President Franklin Roosevelt added another defining feature to this room. The fireplace includes a blessing from President John Adams, which reads, "I pray heaven to bestow the best of blessings on this house, and all that shall hereafter inhabit it. May none but honest and wise men ever rule under this roof." Unlike the other state floor rooms, the state dining room only features one painting. This is the iconic painting by George P.A. Healy of President Abraham Lincoln. This was originally painted in 1869. However, President Grant rejected this painting and chose another Lincoln portrait instead. In 1939, the portrait made its way back to the White House, where it was decided that it would hang after much discussion in the state dining room, where it has typically remained.
And there we have it, state dining room, which I thought the most interesting part is that it only had one portrait, because we've seen so much artwork and so many portraits and paintings and landscapes and all of the other ones. So that was very nice. Here we're going to go more in detail. It shows us the Adams Benediction mantelpiece. Here, right? So for those of us who don't know what a mantelpiece is, no problem. It's this part right here above the fireplace where we can set things on top. Like these, I think these are large candle holders. I could be mistaken. And the famous portrait, the iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln, right? President Abraham Lincoln. And all right, guys, that concludes our virtual field trip today. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I thought that was very interesting. And again, right, why did we go to the White House? To learn a little bit more about the United States and American history, and also because yesterday was election day. Not presidential elections, right? But local elections to make choices. And I thought that today would be really interesting to go and see where the President of the United States today lives, and all those who were President of the United States in the past. All right, guys, we're going to end here. So this is Miss Mara signing off. I hope to see you guys next week on Wednesday at the same time, right, at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for our next virtual field trip. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right, guys, goodbye, and thank you for joining us.